Hello, Fiber friends. It's June, it's Pride Month, happy Pride Month, and every year I do a Pride project. I have the rainbow shawl that I did last year. I should put that on for the video. But I can't because I don't know where it is at the moment. But I'll find it. I always want to wear something I've made to the Pride Festival that we go to, and it's too hot. This is June, and it's too hot to wear knits, like woolen knits. I was thinking, what if I wear a linen dress that needs a belt? And I could make my own belt, but here's what I would do that would be a little different. Let me show you. I don't have the full rainbow of crochet cotton, but I do have this one which is variegated. So that's pretty. This one is called Mexicana Variegated. I had an idea when I was looking at this. So when you think about the structure of an inkle band, it is a warp-faced, I'm making the motion and I can't think of the word. It is a warp-faced weave, which means when you look at the piece, when it's finished being woven, you see the warp. And the warp are the threads that go warp speed ahead, right? And the weft weaves from right to weft. You don't see the weft, except maybe on the very edge. So whatever color, whatever look you want to see in the band, you have to do it with the warp. And with this, I was worried that it would be too variegated. Like it would just be, obviously, if we blend a rainbow, we get mud. And I didn't want to get mud. That's not as fun or bright or cheerful, rebelliously joyful. I mean, maybe it could be, I don't know. I want to see if I can line this up so that it goes around the Inkle Loom and then comes back on its path where the sections of the colors line up across the warp. I don't know if it will or not, but I think it's worth a try, because if that works, what that means is we will have widthwise stripes of color instead of lengthwise stripes of color. And I think that could look interesting in a band that we are used to seeing with lengthwise stripes of color. Are you with me? Let's get the Inkle Loom and let's play around a little bit and see if we can line up these stripes. And if we can, then I want to do a border with the trans colors, because then it's more like the progress flag, and we'll see. We'll set that up. We're figuring this out as we go. In the interest of full disclosures and all of that, this is a shacked Inkle Loom. I am a shacked dealer and I sell shacked products in my shop. So this is something that I sell in the Jill and Eve shop. Now you know, let's talk about this Inkle Loom and the project I'm gonna try. These pegs, when we put the strings back and forth here, it makes it so that we don't have to have a loom that's a million miles long, because it all folds up on the pegs, essentially. Basically, that's what's happening. I'm gonna take this tension peg over here, and I don't want the tension to be all the way out, because as we go, the yarn is gonna have the over-unders, which is gonna shorten it. So to keep up with that, we need to be able to move it in. But if I put it on here and it's not tight enough to start with, I want to have like a smidge of room to tighten it up to start. That initial tighten it up is gonna be gone real quick. So I want to just give myself like the smidgiest of smidgens. Technical terms. That is the smidgiest of smidgens. But mostly I've got my peg all the way out so that I can bring it in as we weave. I just realized something. Because I have that peg there, if the colors don't line up with any of the paths I can run it through on the other pegs, I might need to use the tension peg to adjust it to the right length. If it needs to be like just a tiny bit shorter, if that makes sense. I'm just gonna do a loose little knot here just to give us something to anchor it against. I'm going to do what I would usually do, which is go back and forth. This is my first pass through all the pegs, and it looks like it's just not quite, it looks like the path is a tiny bit too long because this is blue on this strand and the blue doesn't start till about here on this strand. So it's actually very close, but not quite. I've got a little piece of Aida cloth behind here, just ignore those stitches. So I wanted you to see the color. We're shifting blue here, and then we're shifting blue here, up here on this strand. It's very, very close. I think I will have to rely on using the tension knob to make an adjustment. I don't need to shorten it this much. I need to shorten it half that much because it's gonna affect both, right? Like, I think, or no. I mean, in my head, I'm saying it's adjusting the length of both of these. I find it really interesting to consider the way that we mentally perceive weaving, like the structures of it, the math of it, the setup of it, the seeing it ahead a few steps to know what it's going to look like. There's so much imagination involved. And I think culturally, the way that people conceptualize weaving is different and unique to different cultures. I just find it fascinating. So sometimes I might be talking about something that makes no sense. That's okay. It's the way it's working in my brain, and we'll arrive at the end. We'll get to the destination together. This is one of those moments where I want to have an extra arm. So if we slide it just a tiny bit, this shift in blue is right here. And so I take my tension peg down here and let it slide just a little bit. I think that lines it up. I think this might work. I still have this much room to adjust. That makes me nervous. That's not a whole lot to adjust for a full 8.5 length. But if I want this to work, that might just be what I have to do. So I'm going to run some more of this warp back and forth and see how it stays lined up. I've been enjoying watching this as it goes, just seeing all the colors kind of play together. But it's funny how when you get certain colors together, it reminds you of different things. Before the blue came on here down at the bottom, this was very much like a sunset kind of vibes. I don't think there's a way to make it completely perfectly lined up. That's just not how like yarn dyeing works, even in an industrial process where it's more or less uniform. I mean, we have dye lots for a reason, but I needed it to have enough color side by side before it shifts to get the rainbow look, especially when I start weaving, because at all times, one of these threads is gonna be up and one of them is gonna be down. And so that means I'm only gonna see half of each color. If its partner is exactly the same, I'm only gonna see one at a time, which means that would be consistent. But like if I was setting this up for a rainbow using different yarns and I did one red and then one orange and one yellow, then I'm only gonna see dots of red, because sometimes the orange is gonna be lifted up and the red is gonna be down, because that's just how a shed works with weaving, right? Over unders, and then it's gonna be the under overs opposite each time. So I'm happy with how this is going. Even though the colors are shifting, I have enough side by side that it's gonna show up like this in the band, and I'm not gonna have like dots. Cool. I want to keep going until I've got some of the full spectrum of the colors at every point throughout the band. So I'm kind of keeping an eye here at the beginning. We really start with this purple color, and then we've got blue, we've got green, we've got yellow, and we're starting to move into orange. You can see kind of on the edge right here, there's a strand of orange. You can really see up here, it shifts into orange. So I'm gonna keep going until I've got reds showing up here. Theoretically, that means at every point throughout the band, you've got some of each color. Those of you who are familiar with inkle weaving and how we set up those heddles are probably going nuts right now saying, Evie, you didn't do the every other top peg and then floating in the middle thing like you're supposed to for inkle. Correct. I did not do that, but I couldn't do that because that changes the length of every other warp. And because I wanted the rainbow to line up, I just realized that setting it up like a regular Inkle Loom is still gonna be okay. This is how I usually set up my Inkle Loom, with every other warp up and every other warp down. Then I can put the heddles on the top, which brings them down to here, and I can lift these or lower these, and that gives me my shed. I was thinking I couldn't start this that way because I needed to see how the rainbow would line up. And for that to work, I would need to have it all the same length for every warp, because clearly this one is a little tighter than this one because of the path it's taking, which means that since I went back after and pulled these down, these are really slack and these are not so slack. Weaving is all about tension and problem solving, and maybe not taking every path that looks like it might be a shortcut. Often they're not, sometimes they are, but this one wasn't. I'm gonna wind this off real quick and then warp it again. We're just figuring things out as we go. We're just making solutions when we run into problems and keep plugging away. Resilience, that's what that's called, resilience. This is what makes inkle weaving so fast and efficient, and I love this because it makes sense when it's set up. Just don't overthink it like I did before. So I have some textile heddles that I'm using. You can also just use tied up little loops of string or thread or yarn or whatever. You take one of the strands that goes over the top peg, you loop the heddle over that, over the top of it. You bring it down through the bottom. You have to make sure it's going through the right threads in the right order. And then you put the bottom loops over the heddle peg down on the bottom. So I'm going across the entire thing, and you can notice that as I'm putting the heddle onto the warp threads that go across the top, it's holding those down so that all of my warp threads are about at the same height. Now, when I lift and lower, because the heddles are keeping the every others in one place, I have every others with those up and every others with them down. So I don't have to pick through each and every warp as I weave. I can just lift it up and pull it down, and I've got both of my sheds. She's done and ready to weave. Got one shed and the other shed. Perfect. And we got all the colors everywhere that I want them to be. Look how pretty this is. I like looking at the ends because it's kind of a preview of how it's gonna weave up with everything tensioned and next to each other. And I just think it's so pretty. Oh, look, we've got green on this side here and green on this side here. I wonder how many times the rainbow is going to repeat lengthwise. Like the same order of it. Anyway, I'm excited to weave, so let's get weaving. Selvages are the edge of the woven piece, and
Every hand weaver struggles with selvages. It doesn't matter how long you've been weaving. You have to pay attention, otherwise they go wonky and the edge is going to be wibbly wobbly. The inkle weaving trick to keep everything lined up is to kind of pull the final last bit while holding it with the shuttle. When I was in Peru, we were doing backstrap weaving, and I tried doing it this way with the backstrap bands that I was working on, and people were like, absolutely not. What are you doing? We hold it and feel the tension with our fingers. We don't use the shuttle to tension against. And I was a little frustrated because then my selvages looked terrible, but they were right, because with backstrap weaving, eventually you start going to a width that you can't fit the shuttle all the way across. You have to be able to feel how far you've pulled that when you pack it down so that your selvages look nice. I always think it's so interesting how we have different ways to solve the same problems, and the reason that this works for an inkle band is because it's only as wide as the shuttle is ever going to be on the Inkle Loom. So I just wanted to mention that because, again, just interesting observations, deep thoughts with Evie.
This is my flock of coffee. It is a new day. I spent most of yesterday evening watching anime and weaving, and it was a lot of fun. I got Mark going on Apothecary Diaries. I know you're like, show us the weaving. I have to draw it out a little, just a smidge for suspense and drama, because YouTube or something. All right, let's just take a look. When we get to the end, how do we know we're at the end? This part right here, where it splits and half the warp goes up over the bar and half goes down, the closer this gets, like at a certain point, it gets really hard to lift and open your shed. Now there's one other thing that I did that I forgot to watch out for, and that is where I tie the beginning of the warp to the end of the warp. So what this is the beginning of the warp tied to the end of the warp, and the beginning of the warp goes up over this peg, but the end of the warp goes down below the peg. So I have these two traveling the width of this, and then because the one goes down, it's tugging, and that's why there's this weird kind of gloopiness. Can we be gloopy if it's yarn or thread? I think this is gloopiness. It's just kind of sticking everything together in a weird way, and it's putting weird tension on these. These in here that are being pulled down, those are very tight. And it's annoying me, and that's why I say it doesn't matter how far you get to the final bar. If you're annoyed by it, then it's done. That's my official professional opinion. Thrums are a great place to get yarn that's about this length, like the waist that you cut off of after a project. Save that stuff, it's so useful, and then you don't have to cut into a regular bundle of already made yarn. Let's repurpose and reuse things.
One of the things that really helps me as a weaver is that I always, unless it's overshot or something with multiple bobbins where they go different ways at different times, if I'm doing back and forth with one shuttle, every time I go that way, it's an up shed. And every time I go that way, it's a down shed. And then if I leave it and come back later, it still feels like the same rhythm as every other time. It's always up shed from right to left and down shed from left to right. So I don't know if anyone else does that, but it is really helpful for me. I'm still weaving back and forth, and I just brought this weft through. But now I want to show you how I plan to finish this inkle band. I am going to take one of my little thrum pieces. I'm folding it in half so it has 2 tails on one side and a loop on the other. And I'm going to put the loop, put it in this way so it's easier to tell which direction I'm going. So I'm going to put the loop so it's hanging out, and the tails so it's hanging out, and then I'm going to change sheds. Pass it through, and now I'm going to place another thrum piece just like the first one, but it's going to be in the opposite direction. They're alternating. And I want to make sure that I'm not crisscrossing or wrapping around or doing anything funny with the warp and the thrum pieces. Okay, so the weft loop is on this side, and these are the tails, which means this was the last one because I'm matching the loop on the weft loop side. It works for me to keep it straight. So I'll take another one and I fold it in half and leave a loop. And now I do my up shed. Pack that one in there. And this is my weft. So I'm going to snug it in. I snipped it so it wasn't so long it was annoying. I'm going to look for my first loop, and it should be on the same side that I ended my weft, and then I can grab the tails from the opposite side and pull that loop, and it's going to bring the weft with it. And now the weft is going back through the weaving 1 row below where we finished it. So then I have to just pull to get it all the way through. I maybe snipped this a little too long, but that's okay. And then I will be on the next loop side of this finishing setup because they alternate. So we just go back and forth just like that. So I will put my weft in there, grab the tails, and pull it right on through. Bring the last bit of it. Snug it up so it's even. Perfect. So this way I can weave the weft back into my work and I won't have any weird tails hanging out, and I don't need to try and get a needle into the inkle band because it's firmly woven. It would be difficult to get a needle in there to weave it back in. I don't have to have any knots. It's perfect. I love this finishing technique. I went looking through my box of buttons and random haberdashery. I found this buckle. I think this is gonna work. So it's time to try on the belt. I haven't used one of these styles in a while. I'm used to having the pin in it. That's okay though. We can make this work. So if we go through like that, and then we go over the bar. It's not going to look like this without a pin. I might have to go back over because this is then what will hold it. Yeah, all that fringe is going to have to go. That's kind of annoying. Okay, so then if I lift it, it slides out. I feel like I seat buckled myself. Okay. Okay. But I do think this will. There. This is annoying. Oh, I know what to do. We do one of these. How's that?
think it's fabulous. I love this belt. This is awesome. I'm so happy with how it turned out. What do you all think? Would you do it this way? Would you make some of the stripes wider? Would you put other flag combinations on there? Ideas for next time. The gold, I think, goes fine with all the colors of it. I think it looks good, but it is slightly wider than the band by like, I don't know, not by much, but enough that it slides around a little. So I'll keep my eyes out for a good solution. Really good solution to find hardware like this kind of thing is to keep your eye out at thrift stores. You know, if there's a belt that is like done for, take the hardware. Or maybe your own closet, shop your own closet. How am I gonna finish this French? I was thinking about it while I was buckling things together. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim it and then I'll fold it over and just run a seam across it and then fold it over one more time and then just kind of tack it down in like maybe 3 or 4 spots. It's not that fancy. It's just cutting and folding over a hem. But because I went back and forth with the weft, it is secure in there. So even if I cut this fairly close, this isn't gonna unravel, especially if it's protected within a hem, it's gonna be fine. And yeah, so that's my Pride Fest belt. Would you wear it this way or this way? I'm gonna have to figure that out. Option A, option 2.